Y'all know we're located in Fort Worth, Texas. We're located in Dallas, Texas, as well as Tallulah, Louisiana. Today we travel as our cousin Tashara Thompson passed away, and we are here to celebrate her service. All right, today we're going to talk about a few things this morning, but one of the things we're going to talk about is writing and delivering a eulogy or remarks. Now, I know a lot of people who watch this show are not pastors, and you may not have to write a eulogy, or you may not have to speak at a service. But quite often we find people in a situation where they're asked to get up and give remarks. Sometimes we just feel it from our heart. Hey, I couldn't just sit there. This was a good friend. This was a relative. I need to say something to the family. So they get up and they speak. Now, normally, I can tell you this, is that people normally go by what they have heard in the past. Most people are not public speakers. Most people dread having to speak in the public. So they're not sure exactly what to do or what to say. So we stopped by here today to help you with how to prepare yourself, how to deliver if you have to do a eulogy or if you have to do a remark. So let's talk about some of the rules and regulations to that. First of all, most remarks, if it's just remarks, are limited. Most of them are limited to just 2 minutes. If that's the case, I believe that it's very important that we do not go over that limit. I believe that quite a few people at the service is more concerned about how long you speak more than what you have to actually speak about. Quite often people look at their watches. You may have an officiant that's really strict on the time. So you don't want that to be the thing that they remember, that you spoke too long. So be mindful. If there is a limit, prepare yourself for that limit. Remember, if you're doing a eulogy, now a lot of people think preaching a funeral is doing the eulogy. The difference between preaching a funeral and doing a eulogy is a eulogy basically mean that you intend to speak well of someone. You speak well of their life. You can give remarks and you can preach a funeral without speaking well of a deceased person's life. You may not have known the deceased person. You may have known a family member that you're speaking to. You may not have known the deceased person, but as a minister or as someone who speaks, they may ask you to preach the funeral. Big difference from eulogizing and actually giving remarks and preaching the funeral. So if I know the deceased person, then I can eulogize them and preaching the funeral, as well as in a 2-minute remark. So let's talk a little bit about remarks. All right, let's talk a little bit about the eulogy when mean I actually know the deceased person. Remember, if you know the deceased person in a eulogy, make sure you focus on that person. We don't want to get up and give too many accolades to ourselves. We don't want to get up and speak about our experiences and what we've been through. We don't want to make it about us. We want to make it about the person we are speaking to. Good morning, mother-in-law, Delphine Payne, all the way from Monroe, Louisiana. Once again, we want to make sure when we get up to do the eulogy, to give those remarks, or even if we're unlimited to 2 minutes, you want to make sure you give those 2 minutes to the deceased person. Or if you're speaking and you don't know the deceased person, give it to the family member. So you have appreciation of loved one's life, or I have the appreciation of the person I am speaking to. So should I give cliches? Should I quote scripture? Well, you have your limit. You have your 2 minutes or whatever time you're allowed it on the program. You can do all of that. You can give your cliches. You can quote Bible scriptures. You can give 3 points. You can give the conclusion, but you need to stay within that realm. I've held this conversation many times before. I've held it with ministers. Held it with pastors. I've held it with what we would call laymen. And everyone kind of agrees that if you're on for remarks, that shouldn't equal to a solo. or if you're on for remarks, it should not equal to you doing something else. I personally disagree. You have 2 minutes, or you have whatever the amount is allowed it. As long as you stay within that time period and you can sing, give them a song, but don't make it longer than what it should be just because you chose to sing. Maybe you're better off giving your remarks through song, or you're better off expressing your love toward the family and the deceased person through song. If that is the situation, me personally now don't have a problem with that, but I would definitely speak with the officiant. Now, we talk about this word officiant. We talk about basically that's the person that's emceeing the service. If a person is emceeing the service and you are on program, it's important that you all speak before the service starts. What you don't want to happen is that the officiant correct you in front of others. That's going to be a bad situation. It's going to be a bad situation for you, bad situation for the family, bad situation for the officiant. It kind of embarrass everyone. So you want to get there a little early. You want to find out who's officiating. You want to go to them and say, I am on the program to do this. And you all kind of agree, hey, I'm going to do this or that. I'm going to stay within my time period. The officiant may say to you, no, we don't do this here. Or no, don't do that. You want that agreement to disagree before you get up before the grieving family. That is very, very important. Another thing, if you choose to get up, a lot of people say, man, I just couldn't sit there. It was hitting me. So I had to get up there and say something. You need to prepare. Let me say that again. Is that, hold on one second, you guys. I'm losing my link there. I'm going back. All right, I am back. Okay, listen. I know sometimes we want to just kind of jump up because that's what we're feeling. Everyone, the best of speakers, the best of preachers, need to prepare of what you're going to say. So if you feel like, hey, I need to get up, I need to say something, give yourself a few minutes or give yourself a few seconds, whatever, however fast you are, to prepare on what you're going to say. You don't want to come from what we would say, come from the hip, or you don't want to speak from just, get up and tell them how you feel. No, that normally does not work out well for the speaker. If it don't work out well for a speaker, it's definitely not going to work out well for those who have to listen to what you have to say. So even if I'm feeling it, I feel like I have to get up and say something. I need to tell a story, or I need to share something with the family. I believe that's very important, or something that's going to make them feel better. We want to make sure that you actually prepare for that. There is a period of time of preparation. Many speakers would tell you is usually 10 minutes per hour. 10 minutes per hour. If you're going to speak for 10 minutes, you need to at least prepare for at least an hour. If you're going to be a 20-minute preacher, you need to at least give that thing at least 2 hours preparation. 10 minutes per hour. So you say, well, break that down to a 2-minute remark. Well, you just divide that thing into 5. So you need to at least think about, I need to at least get this thing about 15 minutes if I'm going to speak for 3 or 4 minutes. You need to give that some thought. You need to give some type of preparation of what's going to be said. You need to hear yourself say it because they're going to hear you say it. And quite often, people do not forget what was said at a service. Remember, it's someone that's very important to them. It's weddings and funerals. People just don't forget them. They can almost repeat identical to what was said and how it was said. Well, what's some of the tone? What tone should I use? Should I get up and be comical? It's a funeral. Should I get up and be sad but everybody else is sad? Should I get up and try to change the mood of what's going on in the service? Some people will say this: meet people where they are. If they're sad, you should be mindful of that. If they're happy, you should be mindful of that. This is my advice from the Undertaker. When you get up, be you. If you're speaking, someone in that room know you or trust you in some way, because you're not a stranger that just came off the street to speak. Either you knew the deceased person or you know the family, if that is the case, they know you. So I can't get up and be someone else. I have to get up and be me. So if they know me as being a little comical, even in a time of death, even in a time of sadness, people still expect from me to be a little comical. If I'm known as a person that always have a really, smart word or something that seems like, oh man, they always have a great Bible scripture. Well, you need to come with that. You need to be who you are. Don't try to be someone else. You may have went to a funeral and you heard a eulogy. You said, man, that guy killed, man. He did. Man, that was a perfect eulogy. So I'm just going to get up and repeat what he said. No, that was him. Oh man, I heard this lady, she got up and she said this and she spelled out mama and she told me what the MOTHER meant. So I'm gonna get up and nay, that's not you. Get up and be you. Everyone appreciate a genuine person. They appreciate someone that is genuine, not trying to imitate uh, someone else. I believe that's personally that is very important, is that when you get up and speak, you get up and speak, sound and look like you. All right, so you'd asked me to give me 10 minutes for every hour. An hour for every 10 minutes that I speak. What is it that I'm studying in that period of time? Are you saying if I do a 2-3 minute remarks, you need to at least prepare 15-20 minutes for that? Well, what is it that I'm looking for within that time period? Well, first thing you need to look into, if you're speaking about the deceased person, is their personal interests. You want to make sure that you know something about them, something they liked or something that was a pet peeve of theirs. Even if I'm speaking to someone, I may not be speaking about the deceased, maybe speaking to a family member of the deceased. You need to know something about them. Hopefully you guys have had some relationship where there was some type of personal interest. Also, it's important to know their hobbies. Um, I know they like to do these certain things. I know they enjoy doing certain things. So we need to do some type of homework when it comes to their personal interests as well as their hobbies. Also, their achievements. I believe everyone can appreciate being remembered in a good way. Quite often, people want to just get up and tell the one story they know. But wouldn't that be nice if somebody said, yeah, he did this, he went to school, but he did well in school. She did well and she received this degree. Uh, she did this or that, and this was the accomplishments. So it's important that we have personal interests, that we have hobbies, as well as some type of achievements spoken about the person. Hobbies, personal interests, as well as some type of achievements. Now, I read the obituaries, so I see their hobbies. I know a little bit about them, so I know their personal interests. I read the part where they achieved something, so I'm gonna kind of highlight that. Now, what do I add to that? Well, maybe there's a poem that you feel like, hey, if they hear this poem, it inspired me, so it's gonna inspire them. Maybe, like I said, that song, and you can't sing, so quote it. You may want to consider that. Or maybe there's some type of proverb or religious writings or some type of quotes that you can quote. That's okay, as long as we stay within our limit. Now, what I have found this as a speaker, as someone who gets up and speak in front of, no one complains if you don't speak long. I've never heard anyone say, man, that was too short. You got up, you said something, you went over their personal interests, you got up, you talked about their hobbies, and man, you did that in 1 minute and you had an extra minute left. Go back up and finish your extra minute. No, if you can get it out in a shorter period of time, you don't have to take up all of your time. People appreciate getting out early. Not many people complain about, man, that was too short of a service. Normally, people complain when they say the service is too long. Remember, shorter is better. This is what happens. People become bored. I say, well, how are you going to become bored at your loved one's funeral? People will become bored. I'm guilty. I know many of you watching and listening to me, you're guilty as well. Sometimes we get bored. We get bored with the speaker. We get bored with the whole situation. We have what we call attention problems. I won't call it a deficiency or disorder. I'm not a psychologist, but some of us have some problem with, just paying attention. And then not only do we get bored sometimes, sometimes we become uncomfortable. Um, I've been sitting here a while. I've been in the same position. I've been inside the same place. And then sometimes I become uncomfortable. I'm with people I'm normally not with. So be mindful of that if you're going to hold someone there. So, how long should a eulogy be? I know somebody out there, you're questioning. I know you are curious and say, how long should he preach? Well, it depends on how well you know the deceased person. From personal experiences, things that I have seen over the years, I've seen very short eulogies. I've seen ministers and preachers, and that was their bragging rights to get up and say a few words and sit back down. I can name a couple of them that was really, very popular in the Dallas area for doing that. Personally, I don't like that. If you're going to put me on for the eulogy, or you're going to put me on for the spoken word, you need to give the family something. Um, I don't think this is the time we try to impress our colleagues or how fast, or that we can get this over with. If you know something about the deceased person, you need to tell it. And if there's a word from God that's going to help the people, you need to tell it. And time needs to be allowed it to that speaker, to the person that's doing the eulogy. You should not have a time limit if you know the deceased person and if you have something to say. When I say you shouldn't have a time limit, unlike remarks where there's 2 minute limit or whatever the case, the eulogy, uh, the sermon should not be a limit. Should I be mindful of how long I preach? Well, how long can you keep someone's attention? Can you keep my attention with an argument for 15 minutes? Can you keep my attention for 20 minutes? Those are the things we have to be mindful of as we speak. And then also be careful. A rule of thumb is not to speak according to the reaction of the people. Quite often we become guilty of listening to the crowd, and that's how we preach. I've heard this said quite often. Saying amen to a preacher is like saying sick 'em to a dog. If you say amen, he's going to really get at it. If you jump up and shout, if you clap for him, he's going to go a little longer. Be mindful. Some people are saying amen because they want you to sit down. Some people are clapping because they hoping you get to the end, because that's normally when clapping happens. So let's not judge what we're saying or how we're saying by the reaction of the people. Many people do respond differently. Some people are church people, and I mean church people. Like they go to a church that they were taught when the minister speak to say amen. They were taught to encourage the minister by clapping and standing. That doesn't mean what you're saying is all that great. That's just the kind of people they are. And then some people are really paying attention to you. They are hanging on every word, so they don't clap. They don't stand up. They're really hanging on every word. So just because they're quiet doesn't mean they're not getting what you're saying. You have to come up with a plan. And I would say this: stick with the plan. Stick with the plan. Have a plan and stick with the plan. Don't allow the crowd or the people to plan for you. Now, of course, you see the situation is getting out of hand. You see special circumstances that will cause you to have to cut something short. Then you do that if the family is taking it way too hard, or if things seem like it's just getting out of hand. We know how to, as we would say, cut it off. Find a way to cut it a little short. And then we want to make sure that we keep it personal. Once again, we have to be mindful not to be just overly talking about ourselves or other people, or to be too far off when it comes to the person that we're speaking about. We want to make sure that we keep it personal. Keep it personal about who we're talking about in the family that we're speaking of. If they cook, if they like the Dallas Cowboys, if they like to travel, things of that sort, we want to kind of be mindful of that. And it's interesting. A lot of times we cannot recall memories And later on, y'all, we'll leave a funeral or we'll leave a place that we spoke. Say, man, I should have said this or I should have said that. I can tell you this, don't feel guilty about that. It happens to the best of us. It happens to most of us. Most of us, you want to leave something on the table. What you don't want to do is feel like you have to get it all out, because you don't. You don't have to get it all out. Remember, the people you are speaking to will yet be alive. The family and friends that you're speaking to, if you're a close person, get a number, get some type of contact information with them, and reach out to them a week later, reach out to them a month later, 2 months later. And so if it's some story or something you didn't get to say then, you will have that opportunity to say it then. And everybody don't need everything said in one setting. Sometimes we can say it over a period of time, and I think they would appreciate that as well. Another hint, and then we got to move to our 7 points. Want to make sure you don't get off and ask the Undertaker show, not being the better. Make sure that the energy is positive. Quite often when we speak and we want to kind of chastise, or we want to fire and brimstone, we want to say either get saved or you're never going to see them again. I definitely disagree with that approach. We want to make sure that we keep things positive. If I'm doing remarks, positive. If I'm doing the eulogy, positive. If words of encouragement, positive, positive at all times. If there's something bad about the deceased, it does not come out during remarks. If you know something that shouldn't be shared, be a friend and don't share it. Keep everything positive. If you want to be humorous, but you think it's not going to be positive, lean more toward positive than trying to be funny. Positive, positive, positive. The entire remarks, the entire eulogy should be all about being positive. Another thing, we talked about not remembering everything because you want to have memories. It's okay to write things down. Quite often people don't like manuscript preachers, or they don't like people that get up and read from their phones, or they don't like people that read from their notes. That's okay. Uh, I'm not that person, or you are that person. We're just different. My memory is different than yours. If it's something I need to say, I've studied for it, I prepared for it. It's okay to put it in writing. Put it in writing. Take it up there with you. You may need to read it. You may not. But at least you'll have a reference to go back to. You would have a reference to go back to. Most people frown on phones. They don't like phones. They don't like people to hold a phone up and read it to them. Most people don't like that. So if that's the case, find the podium, set your phone on the podium so that I can make some type of eye contact with you, and then I can look down to find my points. So I don't have to write down every word I want to say, but I at least want to put down the points of where I'm going. So if I have 5 points, make sure your 5 points are down, and then make some type of eye contact with someone. I hope someone was listening this morning. I hope we are the better because of Ask the Undertaker. And remember, it's okay to rehearse out loud. Listen, sometimes you got to get in your private space. Sometimes you got to find you a mirror. Sometimes you have to be in an area that other people are not bothering you, so you can practice speaking out loud, so you can hear your own voice, so you don't panic when you hear it over that mic, or you're standing in front of someone else and they make you nervous. So let's move on, you guys. This is part of the second part of the show. And I believe the most important. Thank you for allowing me to share that with you. But there are 7 things that I share every week. And as we go through this ourselves, as we become older, as we become more experienced in film business, the more we appreciate these things. The first one we speak about every week is pre-need, and that definition of pre-need. How important is it that we understand that we don't have to purchase anything to make things easier for our family? So allow me to speak a few minutes about pre-need. Remember, we want your wishes in writing. We basically want you to tell us what you want us to do when you pass away. But let me say this, be mindful of that. A lot of time we'll ask for unreasonable things. We may say, I want this, I want that, but is that reasonable? Can the family actually pull off what you're asking? And does that put the family in a bad situation or a uncomfortable situation trying to make sure that your wishes are carried out? Well, give me an example, Undertaker. Let me help you. I want my cremains poured over a volcano. Well, I love you so much. I'm going to say, okay, listen, she always or he always wanted me to take her human cremains to a volcano and pour it in there. Well, good possibility I could die pouring something inside a volcano, or do I even know where a volcano is? And if I do, can I get there? And those things, sometimes things can become unreasonable. Some people say, hey, I want my cremains. I saw it on TV. They're shooting them up in space. Well, hey, that's okay. But you need to make sure that you make provisions for your wishes. So if you're asking for me to fly you and drop you over a volcano, make sure you make provisions. Tell me exactly where the volcanoes, tell me how to get there. Make sure you have enough funds in place to make sure I can get there. If you want me to send you up in space, make sure you do the homework on what it takes to get something in space, and make sure you make the provisions in the finances available for me to actually make that happen. A lot of times we'll be angry. A lot of times we'll be emotional when we make our pre-need. A lot of times we'll say, listen, I'm mad at this person. I don't want a public funeral. If I'm sick and I don't like the way I look, don't show me to the public. Things of that sort, when we make those decisions in an emotional time, sometimes it doesn't allow families to grieve properly when you pass away. They need to say goodbye to you, but because you told them, don't show me in a time like this, you're taking that away from them. You have a relative or a friend that hasn't seen you in years or been gone a long time, and you basically took away from them the possibility of saying goodbye. So let me help you with that. Instead of saying, if I don't, uh, when I pass away, don't show me, perhaps say, if I pass away and you all have done the best you could do for us, making me look like myself, then make the decision if I should be shown or not. Put it back on the family. Let the family decide. Listen, they look better. The funeral director was able to fill them out, and they don't look sick like they did in the hospital. Allow your family to make some of those decisions. Give them options. Option one: don't show me if I still look really sick. Show me if I look better. Remember, you're no longer in the hospital. The embalmers does amazing things with deceased people. And remember, I'm gonna be dressed up. I'm gonna be in this beautiful casket, things of that sort. So you may be able to be viewed. But if you put that unreasonable thing on your family, they will feel obligated to do exactly what you say. Where are you going to be buried? If you want to be cremated, those are the things you need to be specific about. Don't give them options on that. Say, listen, I want to be buried, and I want to be buried next to so and so. I want to be buried and take me back home, or I don't want to be buried, or whatever the case. Be very specific about that so they don't have to make those decisions. That's what we mean about a pre-need. It's just that conversation you and I just held. Go into details about what you want. If it's unreasonable, make sure you make provisions for what you consider something you just have to have. Make sure you make provisions for it. And if it's something like a viewing or something that's going to affect them, give them options. Put it in writing for them. If you can afford to pay for it, you pay for it so they don't have to use their inheritance to try to meet your wishes. Or, check this out, some people don't put anything in writing. 80% of people, 8 out of 10 people, do not have any wishes in writing. So now families making emotional decisions. We definitely don't want that to happen. Normally, there's more than one person in the family. There may be one person in charge, maybe one next of kin, but normally there's more than one opinion. You know how difficult that can become in any situation, but during an emotional situation, it's even more difficult for the families. So you don't want them trying to figure this thing out at emotional time. And you don't want them to fall out trying to figure out what you want. So make sure whatever you do, do that pre-need. Make sure you come by. You come by, see me, call me. Let's sit down. Let's talk about it. If you want to finance it, I'm going to put you with my sister Charlotte. I'm going to put you with a pre-need agent to get that written up for you. Whatever you want to do, make sure you reach out to the Undertaker. Take advantage of that. A lot of times people think, oh, John Beckwith, you're busy. You're on Golden Gate Funeral Home, one of the busiest funeral homes in the nation. But you'll be surprised. I love talking about funeral business. You can call me direct. I give out my personal cell number. You can stop by. I have walk-ins. My office is the first door when you walk through the door. You can speak directly to me. Even if I am scheduled to do something else, you and I will make a schedule that meets your schedule and that meets my schedule. I love funeral business. I love talking about it. I love giving advice about it. So you definitely want to reach out to me personally. I got you covered. So that takes care of pre-need. Y'all, I got a few more minutes. So let's talk a little bit about insurance and the importance of it. Most of us, especially as African Americans, we understand the importance of insurance. We do. Most of us have been taught. We have some type of inkling about insurance. We watch grandmother, we watch mom, we watch somebody, and normally insurance is not something we have to be educated on. We know about insurance, but I have this show because what I found out is that people don't know how much insurance they actually need or how much insurance their family actually need when they pass away. That's the big deal on insurance. Be careful that the amount of money that you set aside in your budget to make sure your family have an inheritance is not taken away by bills. It's not taken away by circumstances or situations. Make sure you know your budget. If your budget, and I'll use small numbers, if your budget is $100 a month, make sure you stay within your budget. What we don't want to happen is that something happens, situations, circumstances, and you are unable to continue to pay on that insurance policy. I'd rather you pay a little under your budget than to be at or over your budget. Do not put yourself in a strain when it comes to insurance payments. If you put yourself in a strain, you will stop paying it. If you put yourself in a strain, that policy will lapse. And when your family need it the most, it will not be there. Know your budget when it comes to the inheritance you're going to leave your family. If you say, listen, at the end of the day, or at the end of the month, when all bills are paid, I have $100 left over. Make sure your insurance policy stay within that $100. When you're speaking to an insurance agent, it's okay to call me. Say, listen, I listened to this Undertaker show. I know this guy named John Beckwith. He owns Golden Gate Funeral Home in Dallas, Fort Worth, Louisiana. I want to call him. I need some insurance. I know you're the agent, but may I call him? He's not going to charge me. I just want to get some advice from him. That's okay to do that. It's okay to say, hey, this is my budget. I'm calling the Undertaker to see what he thinks. And this is what I'm going to tell you. Stay within your budget. Get the maximum amount of insurance for your budget. Some people walk in and say, man, you need to purchase a pre-need. Wait a minute now. Can I afford a pre-need? Man, you need to purchase this type of insurance because you can borrow on it. Wait a minute. Can I afford that type of insurance? Give me all of my options within my budget. And you all know you purchase things every day. You walk in, it's a million televisions to choose when you're ready to purchase a television. You might walk on a car lot. It's a million cars to purchase when you walk on a car lot. They're always going to have the very best, the most expensive thing. They're going to have something kind of medium in between. And then they're going to have the least expensive thing. I don't feel pressure to purchase either one of those. I purchase the one that's within my budget. If I need a TV, I need to walk out of there with a television. but not with one that I paid too much for, or not one that I could have bought a better one. I need to walk out with the one I need that's within my budget. Same way with a car, same way with insurance. Don't let the rep, don't let a used car salesman sell you a car. You go in there to buy a car. Don't let an insurance agent sell you insurance. You know your budget. Get the best out of your budget. Now, how do I do that? Oh, I'm here to help somebody today. You got to compare prices. You must compare prices. I like you as an agent, right? And you may write for New York Life. Good. But how much is Prudential? How much is Globe Life? How much is Transamerica? How much is Private America? Give me more than one quote from more than one company so I can do what's best for me. If a person walk in and they can only give you a quote from the company they represent, that means that they don't feel very comfortable against their competitors. Meet or beat anybody's price. You hear that all the time because that's a reality. That should be in any business transaction, especially when it comes to insurance. You may want to look at your insurance policy now and think about how much you're paying and how much your family is going to receive when you pass away, and compare it. It's okay to compare insurance policies. I have insurance for Reliable. Great. How much is American National? I have insurance for Prudential. Great. How much is Prime America? It's okay to compare and do what's best for you and do what's best for your family. How much insurance do I need? You need as much insurance as you can afford. I will give you a stick, a measuring stick, and say you need to be able to replace your salary for the next 5 years. But if you can't afford to replace your salary in the next 5 years, don't. But do have something in place. You say, replace my salary? Yes, replace your salary. If you make $20,000 a year, I need at least $100,000 worth of insurance. If I make $50,000 a year, I need at least a $250,000 worth of insurance. It depends on how much money you make. You want to make sure I can at least have my family in a situation that they have at least 5 years to come up with something, some type of way, replacing my income. Remember, stay within your budget. Compare, make them compete for your business. A good agent don't mind competing. A good funeral home, Golden Gate Funeral Home, we don't mind competing for your business. We know that you can choose anyone. We say choose us not because you like us, but can choose us because we're the best choice. And you want to keep that in mind when you're purchasing insurance. So, I still got a few more minutes. So I got to get to my 7. Let's talk a little bit about that last will and testament. Quite often we say, well, John, how difficult is it for me to do this? Remember, you don't have to get it right. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it does have to be done. When I say get it right, a lot of people say, well, if I do it now and my circumstances changes, remember, you can go back and change it. You can make it right. You say, well, I was angry when I did this last will and testament and I cut out my son. So now I'm not angry at him anymore. Can I go back and get it right with him? Yeah, you go back and make that adjustment. When you make an adjustment on the last will and testament, the whole key is adjust the date. What came to my mind last week is not what's on my mind September 24th, 2022. And I can adjust my last will and testament, change the date, and make it right. I purchased a house since then. Change the date, make it right. I purchased a car. Change the date, make it right. I had a new grandchild born. Change the date, make it right. Last will and testaments can be adjusted daily if needed. We want to make sure it's dated. We want to make sure that it is witnessed by someone that's not receiving anything. And we want to make sure it is notarized. If you can afford an attorney, you want to make work with that attorney on the adjustments and, of course, on the initial will. You want to work with an attorney if you can afford one. If you can't, you still need one. Remember, Every deceased person estate needs to be probated. When it's being probated and you go before a probate judge, you need something in writing from the deceased person saying, this is my wishes, judge. This is my wishes, court. This is what I want done with my things. They're mine. I worked for them. I bought them. I paid for them. I should have a right to give them to who I want to give them to. And that works if it is dated, if it is witnessed, if it is notarized. If you had an attorney do it, more than likely it works. No judge want to go against your wishes. Nobody wants to fight against you. Now, you will have people fight against each other. It's what they call contesting the will. They will show up at probate to say, listen, he really didn't write that. He was forced to do it. Well, the notary is going to say, no, I notarized it. He wasn't forced to do anything. He's right there. He's in his right mind. He signed it, and I notarized it. The witness is going to say, no, this person's in their right mind. I was there. I witnessed it. I'm not getting anything out of this. So let them contest it. At least we got something to fight with. Now, remember, don't you write a last will and testament and leave it in a drawer for 10 years, because more than likely something has changed in your life. So make sure you do that. The question is, can you create a prearrangement package for an unnamed beneficiary? You can. I do not recommend any insurance related documents, pre-needs, or any insurance policies not to have a beneficiary. I got a question across there. That's the reason I'm going back to insurance. The question was, can I create it and don't have a beneficiary? Yes. They will let you have an insurance policy without a beneficiary. They'll write you a pre-need without a beneficiary. Y'all, that causes all types of problems. Anytime something is insurance related, you need a beneficiary. Make sure the beneficiary is of age, over the age of 18, and make sure that they're going to carry out your wishes. Trust is very important. Whoever I make the beneficiary, I need to trust them. All right, you guys, thank you for that question. It's all about Ask the Undertaker. You can put that in at any time. I will stop and answer any questions you may have. Let's continue on this last will and testament. Remember, every deceased person estate should be probated. When it's probated, we want to make sure that the judge, the court, have something in writing from the deceased saying, this is what I want done. A few more rules to that last will and testament. Whoever you owe, don't surprise your family. Don't surprise those who are expecting inheritance just to find out later that you actually owe someone. So we want to make sure that you put everything in writing that you owe and who you owe, so we can get them taken care of. Put in writing what you own, so we're not looking for everything that you own. Just put it in writing for us. And then decide who's going to pay those bills and decide who's going to receive the things that you own. You may even tell us sell certain things in order to pay off these bills. Well, some things may be sentimental. You say, whatever you do, don't ever sell this or sell that. But I need you to speak to me direct. Tell me exactly who you owe. Tell me exactly what you own. Tell me exactly how to handle that business. Do you want me to sell something you own in order to pay somebody you owe? And if there's certain things you want me to sell, make sure you tell me exactly what you want me to sell. Also, in that last will and testament, tell me what to do with your minor children. If you have children under the age of 18, put in writing, this is who I want to keep them. This is where I want them to stay. This is what my wishes are for them. Remember, it's witnessed, it's notarized. You know, hopefully there was an attorney available to be with you, so we can go to war with that. We can fight with that if someone wants to contest that. But you have to put it in writing. If you don't put it in writing, if you don't tell us, well, we don't know exactly what to do. Then we just kind of follow the letter of the law. And the person normally with the best argument wins that. And we don't want that to happen. We want your wishes to be carried out at that time. So we're going to make sure it's dated. We're going to change it periodically as we need to make it right. We're going to make sure it's witnessed. We're going to make sure it's notarized. We're not going to forget about our minor children. We're going to write down everything we owe and everything we own, and we're going to give it out to who we want to have it. You guys, I got a few more minutes, so let's talk a little bit more about some more things. We talked about pre-need. We talked about insurance. We talked about beneficiaries. We also talked about last will and testaments. Another thing that's very important is that living wills. Now, there is a difference. There's a difference between what I want you to do with me while I'm yet alive, but I can't speak for myself. Either medically, something has happened to me that I cannot speak for myself. We need that in writing as well. Whatever you want us to do with you, just tell us. If you want to go to a nursing home, you don't want to be a bother to anyone else. If you want to stay at your house and you want home health care, if you want your kids to take care of you, or whatever you want, put it in writing. Have some type of living will. So if something happens to you, you become disabled, we know exactly what to do with you. You need to tell us, this is what I want you to do with my funds. This is the live disability insurance policy I have in place. And if something happens to me, this is what I want you to do with me while I'm yet alive. Because remember that last will and testament, that life insurance policy, that pre-need, none of those things kick in, none of those wishes kick in until after you are deceased. This document kicks in immediately when you're unable to speak for yourself. Now, every bank account, I mean every one of them, don't miss one. You got to tell us where they are. There's two things we need from you. We need the routing number and we need your checking account number. That is on the bottom of every check that you have. To the left is the routing number. To the right is the account number. We need a copy. Just make a copy of your check. We need the routing number and we need the account number of your bank account. We need your routing number and we need your account number. And you must put a beneficiary on that account. Make sure the person you trust is on that account. Make sure that someone is on that account as a beneficiary. They don't have to be a joint account holder. They shouldn't be able to go in there and get your money out. They shouldn't be able to write a check. Just because they have a copy of a check doesn't mean they can write a check. They don't need to be a signature on your account or whatever the case may be. They just need to be the beneficiary. We need a routing number and we need an account number. What we've found is that some people bank all over the world. In so many different banks now because we're able to bank electronically that we don't know where those banks are. Some of them we never even heard of before. All of them are not major banks. But if you give us that routing number and you give us that account number and you tell us who the beneficiary of those accounts are, we can go and get those accounts and we can take care of them. All right, you guys, got a couple more minutes. So, I got to hit a couple of more things. We talked about pre-need. We talked about insurance. We talked about last will and testaments. We talk about making sure we have a living will in place. And we talk about how important it is to have a payable on death or a beneficiary on every account we have. We need to know where the bank is, name of the bank, routing number, and account number. Now, who's going to be in charge of the funeral? Man, we call this thing right of disposition. Who's in charge of your funeral? This is normally where the Undertaker really get excited. I love it. I get the opportunity to make hundreds and hundreds, and my company make thousands of funeral arrangements annually. And what we see is that normally there's nothing in place to say I'm in charge. Normally we just go right down the list that's described by the state. which first of all includes the spouse as being the number one person, and then children and so forth and so on. What we find is that some people have multiple of those. Either they have ex-spouses, or they have common law spouses. They have spouses they haven't been with for years, but they never divorced. So that become an issue. So we can't just say just because I'm married that that person is going to be in charge. What we find out sometimes is that that's not the case, and sometimes that is actually contested. And especially if we're moving all the way down to children. I found this, especially if they're not older children. I mean, by older, I'm talking 30s, 40s, 50s. Normally, their parents still control their thought process. So your child will walk into your funeral arrangements and have their mother with them, which is your ex-wife, and she's making all the decisions because her daughter is the next of kin. They're walking there with your ex-husband, and because your son or daughter is the next of kin, they're making decisions. Is that really who you want making decisions at your funeral? They outrank your mama. They outrank your daddy. They outrank the person that you're in a relationship with right now. So be mindful. If your children is your next of kin, you definitely need a right of disposition because they're normally very influenced by their parent. And normally the parent and you are no longer even in a relationship. And sometimes the relationship you had didn't end very well. So you'll be surprised some of the things we'll hear, some things we'll deal with. You want to make sure that you have a person in charge of your funeral that you trust. They do not have to be related to you. They do not have to be any blood relation. They do not have to fall in a certain order. You just decide, this is the person I want in charge of my funeral. This is the person I've given the money to, made them beneficiary of insurance, or they personally have enough money to carry out my wishes, and they are in charge. But you have to come put that in writing. It has to be on a right of disposition. It has to be notarized. There are some things that make sure that it's legal, so they can't fight uh, against you. The baby mama, the other child, the wayward child, the one that shows up and say, "Hey, that's my daddy too, or that's my mama too." Well, where you been all this time? You ain't never did nothing for them. You weren't there when they were sick. How often we hear that argument? Well, here's the right of disposition of saying we're not equal next of kin. Here's the right of disposition of saying you're not in charge. I'm in charge. And this is what we're going to do. Got to do that. If you don't do anything else out of the seven, do the right of disposition. Choose this day who you're going to put in charge of your funeral. Don't take that for granted. They may never have to use it. They may never have to pop that trump card out. But if they do, they'll have it to do it. And when I say things go so much smoother when there's just one head, because the Bible speaks about that. It's difficult sometimes when you have more than one head. Have I seen tragic situation happens? Yes. Have I seen us having to go to court in order to do a disposition of a deceased? Yes. I've seen strangers, such as people called judges, make decisions about lives that they knew nothing about. They made decisions about children that they never met. They made decisions about deceased people that never came in contact with. You don't want them making decisions about you. Put it in writing who you want to handle your service. If you want your wife to do, put it in writing. You want your husband, put it in writing. You want a certain child, put it in writing. But to think that there should be and could be more than one head, we're really taking a big chance with that. And it may work out. I'm not saying it won't. And hopefully the person who has the right disposition never have to show it. Hopefully the whole family just come together, kumbaya, plan your service. Everything goes well. Nobody says a word, and things just go as planned because you did a pre-need. But if it don't, if someone does show up, if someone decide not to act the way you raised them, give the person with the most sense, give the person that you trust something to fight with. And that's called a right of disposition. Now, you listen to the show, you watch the show, you got a pre-need, You got it all. You got insurance. You got a last will and testament. You got living will. You got beneficiaries on all your accounts. You have actually got a right of disposition in place. I mean, you got everything you need. You say, I know this is important. I know it's important that my legacy goes out well. I know it's important that my family is not fussing and fighting at a time like this because I'm the glue. I'm the one that keeps everybody in line. I'm the patriot. I'm the matriarch. I'm the leader of this family. So I put everything in order so they won't have any issues. Who knows your family is you. Who knows your children is you. And you've done everything. But we can't find what you've done. You have an insurance policy, but we can't find it. You have all these things. We can't find it. We don't know where to look. We need you to give the person you trust a letter where everything is. As soon as this show is over, next 5 minutes, I need you to text somebody. I need you to call somebody. I need you to email somebody and tell them where everything is. Remember, if the wrong person get hold to your important documents, we may never see them. They may be destroyed. They may be lost. And we'll never be able to carry out all the work you've done to make sure your services, to make sure that your legacy lives on, to make sure your family is not fussing and fighting. They're not embarrassing you or your other family members. We need to know where these things are. Please text somebody after this show. Please email someone. Put it in writing and get it to them so they know exactly where to go, where to look. Now, how important is this document? If I choose to put it in writing, not email it or send it through text, and I just choose to put it in a safe in my home, or I choose to put it in the top drawer to the left or whatever, that's okay. But just be mindful, certain things can destroy that, such as a flood. I've been unfortunate enough to have a flood in my house, not because of rain on the outside, because a pipe busted on the inside and flooded my house. All the floors, everything had to be replaced. Y'all, that can happen. A flood just in your home alone can ruin all your things. Or there could be a fire and everything could be burned up. I mean, everything could be burned. I mean, how many times we've heard that situation? How many people have dealt with fires? So you got to be mindful that these things are too important to put in a position for a flood or any type of natural disaster or any type of fire, anything to ruin them. So that's the reason we recommend that you do a soft copy, meaning that you send it electronically, either email, text, some type of way that the person will have it on a device that they can get to. Even if they lose their phone, they can go get it from a computer. Even if the house burned down, they can go get it from some other place. Regardless of what happens, that is always available for them. So just remember those 7 things. Make sure that everybody has a pre-need. Make sure everybody has insurance, last will and testament. Make sure that we have a living will, payable on death, a beneficiary on every bank account, as well as a right of disposition, and make sure we know exactly where everything is. You guys, listen, they tell me that my time is up, but y'all know how much I love funeral business. We're going to ask you to continue to pray for our family. We've really been blessed as we deal with the death of our loved ones. Thank you again for all the well wishes. People are still calling, reaching out, still bringing great gifts. For our father who passed away, John Beckwith Sr. Great homegoing celebration. Thank you to everyone who participated in that, who played a part in that. Y'all know how great the eulogy was to kind of inspire me to speak about that today, as well as the remarks and the songs, and everything went well for his service. Today, we will celebrate my 36-year-old cousin, Tashara, as we lay her to rest today. I will be eulogizing her today, as well as our cousin Junior and Toulouse, Louisiana on next week. You guys, thank you so much for being a part of Ask the Undertaker. May God bless you. May God keep you is our prayer.